what she has to say. Of course, she's involved with the tribunal as well. And so if cops, police asking me to move, so I'm gonna go ahead and acquiesce to this reasonable request that he's making. So, Keisha, good to see you. And I'm gonna call your attention to an email I sent you about this paper I wrote on reparations when I was in college. I've forgotten all about it, but I came across it in conversation, and so I hope you get a chance to look at it. It's about reparations, Black United Front, and St. Stephen's Church. But I want to go back and revise it, be prepared for some kind of publication. So I'd be very.
So, Brother Najee, you were kind of going out, but thank you so very much. And thank you for your very excellent presentation and the whole chronology of the case of Imam Jamil Al-Amin. Thank you. And thank you for the organizers of this event. I'm going to be talking about this afternoon, Free Our Political Prisoners as down payment for reparations as part of the Our Community Under Siege, the military attack against the Black community, political prisoners, and Imam Jamil Al-Amin H. Rap Brown. So, as stated, I am Nikichi Taifa. I am president of the Taifa group, and I'm a long-time struggler in the struggle, I guess you could say, for both political prisoners as well as reparations. So, prepping for this session today, it was like a nostalgic throwback to history. I'm talking about over 40 years ago. Working very closely with Brother Imari, President Imari Abubakari Obadeli, first popularly elected president of provisional government of the Republic of New Africa, in his crusade as part of the New African Independence Movement to get our Black political prisoners and prisoners of war recognized both domestically and internationally. And yes, reparations was always on the table for those seeking a Black nation, land, sovereignty, as it is today. Reparations for us as a people and freedom for our freedom fighters were, as now, roots internationally and domestically, always part of the demand. And so I am holding in my hand right now, bam, okay. This is an October 12, 1978 press release issued by the Foreign Affairs Task Force of the Republic of New Africa titled RNA Asks United Nations for help for Black POWs and independence. And the press statement released the names of 17 people held in U.S. state and federal prisons whom the Republic of New Africa stated were not just political prisoners, but prisoners of war within the meaning of the Geneva Convention of 1949. And accordingly, the Republic of New Africa, in response to a public offer by Fidel Castro, which is here, bam, December 24th, 1977, okay, that Cuba would accept Black prisoners as an exchange. So Brother Imari immediately seized upon the opportunity of providing names. There's also the August 1978 letter President Imari wrote to President Jimmy Carter, asking that Carter agree to exchange New African prisoners of war for persons in jail in Cuba. And then here's another. Where is this one? Okay. This one was a letter to Salim Ahmed Salim, October 1st, 1978. He was the ambassador of the United Republic of Tanzania to the United Nations. He was chair of what's called the Special Committee on 24, the Special Committee on Decolonization, with regard to the implementation of the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to colonial countries and peoples. This letter right here. Yeah, I went back into my archives, y'all. In that letter, Brother Imari stated, the U.S. government has never accorded the status of POW to a single Black, Puerto Rican, or Indian engaged in liberation struggles against the United States. This is in violation of not only General Assembly Resolutions 2621 and 3103 with respect to the treatment of combatants captured in the course of struggles against colonial and alien domination and racist regimes, the U.S. is in violation of Article 5 of the Geneva Convention of 1949, Prisoners of War, which guarantees that all persons claiming POW status will be granted that status until there is a decision by a competent tribunal. And then finally, the letter called upon the Special Committee of 24 to facilitate the exchange of new African prisoners of war from the United States to Cuba. Now, y'all, Brother Murray was in federal prison at this time, 1978, orchestrating all of this from Atlanta Penitentiary, where he was serving at the time. And this was the, this was the list of 17 at that time, many of whom were in Atlanta, but it also included Safia Ashabukari, it included James Tariq Haskins, it included Herman Bell, and included Veronza Bowers, and others that he either knew or served time personally with. So what does all this have to do with reparations? Everything. Why? Because the issue of reparations for Black people in the United States was once, in the not too distant past, was once unthinkable by mainstream America's viable public policy. But now, I mean, I'm telling you, it's like the buzzword from the top to the bottom, to the left, to the right. I mean, it is there. It has definitely reached the mainstream. For Black folk in the United States, what should reparations entail? I say 4 basic elements. Number 1, the formal acknowledgement of historical wrong in an official, unfettered apology for the dehumanization and atrocities of the enslavement era. Number 2, the recognition that the injury has continued throughout the years and still manifests itself today. Number 3, the commitment to redress by the federal government and state government and local governments and academic institutions and religious institutions and corporations and industries, the commitment to redress by all of these entities that sanctioned the enslavement and subsequent segregation, et cetera, enjoying unjust enrichment, and the actual compensation in whatever form or forms are agreed upon. I'm going to repeat that. The actual compensation in whatever form or forms are agreed upon. Freedom for our political prisoners as a down payment for reparations, not as far-fetched as one might think. In 1987, legislation was passed in this country authorizing the payment of $20,000 to each Japanese American detention camp survivor, a trust fund to be used to educate Americans about the suffering of Japanese Americans during World War II, a formal apology from the United States government, and guess what, y'all? A pardon for all of those who resisted detention camp internment. Did y'all hear what I said? A pardon. Part of the Japanese American redress bill, part of their reparations settlement was a pardon for all of those convicted of resisting detention camp internment. There is precedent. They have done it before. They can do it again. It's a sad commentary. Oh. It is a sad commentary, however, that the United States government has not taken responsibility for its role in the enslavement and post-slavery segregation of millions of Blacks. It has never attempted reparations to Black folk, though actually reparations were paid at the end of the enslavement era. We just weren't paid to us. Reparations were paid to the former slave owners for the loss of their so-called us, okay? It's never attempted reparation to Black people for the extortion of labor for many generations, deprivation of our freedom and human rights, and terrorism against us throughout the centuries. And it most certainly has never apologized for its war of COINTELPRO, which Najee talked about, the FBI's one secret, quite illegal counterintelligence program against the Black movement. For those who are newcomers and who might have missed Brother Najee earlier, one of the goals of the COINTELPRO was to stop the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the Black community. The goals of the COINTELPRO were to expose, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalists and their leadership, their spokespersons, their membership, and their supporters. Otherwise neutralize. Neutralization is a war term. It is a military term. They are the ones that brought war into this conversation. Neutralization is military. Okay? You might ask, well, then what was this war? Okay, y'all. There has been a war of genocide being waged against our people ever since we were kidnapped and brought to these shores. A war, a genocide that still persists today. And those of our freedom fighters who have been captured, fighting against or defending against this war genocide and have been captured and imprisoned must be freed. And you might ask, well, Nikichi, come on now. Genocide, Black folk have not been annihilated like the native peoples of this land. Genocide, Black people were not burned in ovens like the Jewish people. Well, let me tell y'all this. And I know this audience knows this, but we cannot state it too often because we didn't learn this stuff in school. And no, I didn't learn it in law school either. But the definition of genocide, applicable in not only just the international context, but in the domestic context as well, is number one, killing members of a group. Number two, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Number three, deliberately inflicting upon the group conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction in whole or in part, taking measures to prevent births within the group, transferring children from one group to another. That is the definition of genocide, which is enshrined in U.S. law, in the U.S. Code. But we don't think about it. We think about genocide. We can only talk about the native peoples of this land. We can only talk about the Jewish people. We need to uncolonialize our mind to realize that these concepts, these terms, unquestionably refer to us as well. But guess what? That ain't all. Genocide is not the only actionable crime. Conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, intent to commit genocide, and complicity in its commission. And the definition goes on. This refers to us. The definition of genocide and who are the guilty parties go on. It says those guilty of genocide shall be punished, regardless of whether they are constitutionally protected rulers, public officials, or private citizens. That's it, y'all. Now, I know the Mandela Truth and Reconciliation and all like that, and they tell the truth and then they don't need to be punished. Well, under the Genocide Convention, it says that they shall be punished, regardless of who they are. And it's not just them doing the genocide, it's the conspiracy. They keep hype us up on all this conspiracy, VICO and all like that. Well, we got something from them too. We just need to untrack our minds, be fearless, and go into court with these documents. So it's pertinent to understand that reparations is not just solely an economic concept. It's not just closing the black-white wealth gap, y'all. It's a political concept as well. It's a cultural one. It's one of justice. It's one of healing. Reparations are not just limited to stolen labor, but for unjust war against us. Unjust war and cultural aggression as well. The political essence of slavery is not merely founded in the economic exploitation of labor, but in the illegal imposition of United States jurisdiction upon the enslaved and her descendants. And when people resist that imposition, when people defend themselves against the war of aggression and COINTELPRO and genocide and are imprisoned, like the Japanese Americans reparations bill, they should be freed. Now, of course, that would just be a down payment on reparations, but it's a down payment that's applicable now. We don't even have to wait for HR 40 or S40, the federal bills that are in Congress right now. A pardon for all of those convicted of resisting detention, camp, internment. We can start off very specific. We're not talking about now a transfer to a third world country like we were talking about Brother Mari and company during the 1970s. We're not now talking about a prisoner exchange, though, that's not really totally off the table if the occasion occurs itself. We are talking about something really much simpler. We're talking about clemency, commutation of sentence for those who remain in prison. We're talking about pardons for those who have been released. There is advocacy happening, going on right now to President Biden to release categories of prisoners. There's advocacy going on right now. Categories, the elderly, Categories: those vulnerable to COVID-19. Categories: those who were sentenced before the federal sentencing guidelines went into effect and still being subject to a non-functional terroristic parole board. Those serving marijuana sentences where, it's legal, but people are still in prison selling, and more. And indeed, the Justice Roundtable's recommendations, Justice Roundtable entity, which I convene and chair, included specifically the category of COINTELPRO era political prisoners. Can you believe that not one government official, not one U.S. government official from the COINTELPRO ever served one day in prison for their dirty tricks and their crimes as part of the war of genocide being waged against our people? Yet our brothers and sisters still languish behind bars, are subject to parole, or in exile. Presidential or gubernatorial clemency for our political prisoners and prisoners of war. Let's not forget a demand for posthumous pardons for those who have already passed. You see, we don't need to invent any new wheels, y'all. There are already precedents with other groups of people in this country that's already been set. A pardon for all of those who resisted detention, camp, internment. Nobody was talking about that. I actually went to the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which is the Japanese American Redress Bill, and I actually read it. And when I saw that, I said, case closed. I mean, I'm just saying. So I talk about it in every single presentation that I do about reparations, because it's about education. I will not, at this time, catalog other precedents for reparations paid and pending internationally and domestically. I would just suffice it to say that with such precedents for reparations to non-Black people spanning 4 continents, it would be sheer racism for the world to discountenance our claims. And it is critical that our own search for reparations must of necessity be tailored to our own peculiar experience, although some may demand only that their ancestral home range be returned to them, others that they be compensated for the indignities of internment and the loss of citizen rights, still others that acts of genocide and other atrocities against their people be atoned and paid for, some others that land excised from their territory be paid for. We, however, we who have experienced all of the above and more, and experienced them for much, much longer than most, and therefore suffer chronically from their effects, we must ask not only that reparations be made for specific acts, we who have been such monumental victims are obliged to also ask what sorts of systems and policies and practices made this long ma'afa of injury from this war possible, and what must be done to eradicate these systems and policies and practices and the war being waged against us, the war in America, such that such injustices will never be so inflicted again. One area of repair that must be on our table, that can be implemented right now by the mere stroke of a pen as a down payment on a reparations settlement, is the immediate release of our political prisoners and our prisoners of war. We must struggle for those. We must struggle for those. We must struggle for those who struggled for us. Commutation of sentence for those still incarcerated. I want to lift up and just call out a couple of names, and you all put some other ones in the chat, because I know I don't have them all. This is just some. So if you don't have a chat, you can just call it out, silently, but put it in the chat for those that don't miss. Imam Jamil Alamin, Sundiata Akoli, Mutulu Shakur, Veranza Bowers, Russell Maroon Schultz, Mumia Abu Jamal, the Virgin Island 3, Rochelle McGee, Fred Burton, Joseph Bauer, Leonard Peltier, David Gilbert, and the list goes on. And hopefully folk are putting stuff in the chat if there's a chat ongoing or calling it off. So that was commutation of sentence immediately for those currently incarcerated. Pardons for those who are in exile. Assata Shakur, Pete O'Neill, and any others you know that are out there in the world, okay? Pardon for those who have been released. I mean, you know, don't just get released. You know what I mean? They are subject to this prison after the imprisonment, the parole. You know, you got someone, God, thank you. I saw Free Ed Poindexter. Yeah, put him on up there. I'll call it out if I see it pop up on the screen. Thank you. David Gilbert, I did call him. Thank you very much. And keep on calling out because we need to lift up these names, people who struggle for us. Pardon for those who have been released. Whether they're still on parole or not, their slates need to be wiped clean. Jalea Muntakim, Herman Bell, Ramona Africa, and the Move family, Daruba Moore, the RNA 11, the Philadelphia 5, Jihad Abdul Mumit, Mafundi Lake, Zolo Agona Azania, James Tariq Haskins. Did he pass? Okay, anyway. Brother Ahmed Obafemi. Oh, thank you, Nahanda Abiodun. But actually, Presente, I don't think she ever was convicted. I don't think. Okay. But yes, for those, okay. Now, posthumous pardon for those who are already departed. We will put Nahanda in that basket. Thank you so much. The Honorable Marcus Garvey. Oh, yeah. You talk about first target of COINTELPRO. President Imari Abubakar Obadeli, someone who wasn't even at the house where the shooting took place, still had to serve 5 years in prison. Albert Noah Washington, folk who are passed in prison. You know, our sister, Safia Bakari, I'm sorry, I got to say it, I will never forget. 1975, standing up in a courtroom in Goochland, Virginia, Sister Safia saying, you cannot try me in your courts of law. I am a citizen of the Republic of New Africa. I'm a prisoner of war. And, you know, hey, that's some bold stuff. There were some bold folk back then in those days. Oh, my God. Oh, Tariq is with you now. I'm sorry. How you doing, my brother Tariq? Okay. Hope you didn't hear what I said before. Romaine Chip Fitzgerald, thank you so much. Let's see. I said, Geronimo G. Jaga. Okay, I should have put Brother Masai Ehihosi back on the pardon part. Brother Abdul Majid, Henry Shasha Brown, Atiba Chana, and the list goes on. Free them all. Free them all. Free them all. Reparations now. Release of our political prisoners as a down payment on our very legitimate reparations demand. Madasi Asante Atsana. I think we can open it up for some discussion. I think we have a little bit of time or Q&A on that. So I don't know if the moderator wants to come back.
Yes. Okay, this is excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So those on, please put your questions down in comments and we'll bring them up. Someone also named Matulu Shakur. And
I definitely called out Matulu Shakur. He was a number. Yeah, he was one of the first on the list.
The gracious Tia says the South needs your help.
All right, I want to help the South. Yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
How can we reach your organizations to join?
Okay. Yes. So I'm a part of the Jericho movement. So anything dealing with Jericho movement, you should definitely reach out to that. That's on the political prisoners front. Maybe somebody can put the information for Jericho movement on the list and the Committee to Free Imam Jamil Al-Amin. I'm also a founding member of NCOBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And that website is ncobraonline.org. That's NCOBRA online.org. And I'm also a commissioner on NARC, the National African American Reparations Commission. And that website is reparationscom.org. That's reparationscomm.org. So there you go.
Reparations.
Yeah, reparationscom. I don't know if this chat I have is the regular chat, but I can put it in here. Amen.
Yeah, you can put it in there and we'll share it with this.
Okay, there we go. And I'll do, what's the other one? In Cobra. Oh, also, I am the author of the memoir, Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. I tell about a lot of this in my memoir and stuff from personal experience from back in the day and all that. So you can go to your Black bookstore, or Amazon, or wherever, or you could go to my website. Oh, yeah. www.blackpowerbblacklawyer.com. Blackpowerbblacklawyer.com. I just put that in. Let me put more.
Okay, we'll put that on. So one other, the other question is, how can we use your work as teaching tools for our youth?
Well, that's another timely question. Two responses, if I may. I have a couple of books for children I wrote way back in the day, that will be coming out in print, coming out again sometime before the summer. So keep your ear attuned to that. That's number one. Number two, Brother Najee mentioned a tribunal coming up in October, international tribunal, charging the United States with violations of quite a number of human and civil rights, and including genocide. And I'm almost certain that the tribunal will be transcribed and made into fashion that it can be applicable for as a teaching tool, because it's going to go through the history of the violations against our people. I'm the lead prosecutor in that case. Najee Mujahid and other very stellar attorneys will be working on the case. Again, we don't usually think of ourselves as prosecutors, but we're prosecuting the U.S. government, y'all, for these crimes against humanity and the failure over all these centuries for redress.
Great. So next question, sister, is what can Black folks and allies in this country and the world do to continue the push for Black reparations in the U.S.?
Okay, thank you. Well, people need to make sure they're on their lips. When you're out there in the streets protesting, make sure there's signs up there. Make sure that this issue comes to the attention of the colonial rulers of this country. And this is very important because I'm really serious. When we're talking about reparations, release of our political prisoners as a down payment, it is doable. It absolutely is. It's not like political prisoners have never been released before. In 1975, Carter released the 5 Puerto Rican nationalists who blew up the House of Representatives in 1954 after serving 25 years. And at that point, we thought 25 years was a long time. We got Sundiata Kohli coming up on 50 years. We got Ruchell McGee. Oh my God, he's 60 or something years. I don't know. Imam Jamil Al-Amin. I mean, we're talking about some horrendously lengthy sentences. We've had political prisoners, albeit most of them have been our white allied political prisoner brothers and sisters who have received clemency. Susan Rosenberg and Linda Evans, who I was proud to serve on the legal defense team representing Laura Whitehorn. It appears as if many of our white allies, with the exception of David Gilbert, he still needs to be released, but have received either parole or clemency. Our brothers and sisters, our Black brothers and sisters, still, by and large, language. We were able to get some out on parole, alhamdulillah. I don't know if I say it right.
Got it right.
Yeah, okay. But they all need to come home, and there are mechanisms in which they can. I'm talking to the White House now with respect to categories of clemency. They are listening to us. All of our political prisoners who've been down since the COINTELPRO era fit within that category of elderly prisoners. They all fit within that category of vulnerable to COVID-19. Some of them already have, Mumia was diagnosed with COVID. Sundiata Kohli is a COVID, survivor. So we are working on mechanisms. We are working on a category dealing with prisoners who were in prison before the federal sentencing guidelines went into effect and before parole was abolished in the federal system, to get them out, because the parole board is not acting, at least not on our political prisoners. So we're asking for that as a category, as well. In the whole COINTELPRO era, like I said, not one U.S. official has gone to prison. well, there were two who were convicted, but they were pardoned. Edward Miller and Mark Felt, they were pardoned right after their conviction. So they never spent, a day. We got Judas and the Black Messiah film coming out. There's a lot of exposure going on right now. I was supposed to be asking the question of what can folk do. We need to say their names. We need to link these two issues, and we need to struggle for those who put their lives on the line and to struggle for us.
So while we wait for any other questions, please, we have a little bit more time with the sisters. So please put your questions down. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to share a few pictures that some supporters shared with us, and hope you guys will enjoy them. If you can recognize some people, or I see Ma'am Jamil here. Can everybody see these pictures? And then there was one more. Just give me 1 second while I pull that up.
Nice historic pictures.
Thank you to, believe, Sister Ruth Standifort, who shared these.
Oh. England.
Okay, so those were the two pictures that she shared. They're quite historical, and so let me go back to questions. Is a phone number to speak to someone as well about a humanitarian issue for a loved one? We need your help advocating. Love the energy that you bring. Brother Jalil Muntakim is saying the International Tribunal 2021 needs financial support to be successful, to ensure after the tribunal will be able to file a civil federal court law suit and move to bringing the People's Senate.
My sister, may I just say, you just mentioned Brother Jalil Muntakim. When I was prepping for this and going back to my old stuff, I found a letter. It's a multi-page. This is what you call carbon copy letter. That Brother it's a carbon copy letter, Free the Land, Brother Jalil, February 11th, 1979. This was from Brother Imari. This was about one of your many fabulous ideas, Brother Jalil. Brother Imari was providing some guidance and advice and counsel and all like that for it. I'm going to send this to you because it's like, I said, oh my God, it's like, we didn't have nothing in those days. It was just, you write on carbon paper and you send the original and you keep the copy. Well, he would give me his copies of stuff. So anyway, I just had to say that little tidbit.
That's historical. You should keep it. It should go in a museum one day.
I got a whole lot more. You just don't know.
So here's the contact for the tribunal, nationaljericho@gmail.com and spiritofmandela1@gmail.com. So I think that is, if I'm just going to check to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I did want to ask this, since you are working on the tribunal, have you spoken to other tribunal holders, for example, the Bosnian Tribunal, Genocide Tribunal holders, the one that is now being put together for the Uyghurs for their genocide by China? And is there any means to collaborate or any efforts to collaborate with ongoing genocides right now?
Well, I say absolutely. The primary organizers of the tribunal, the Jericho Movement, Brother Jihad Abdul Mumit and Matt Meyer. Those questions should be more appropriately addressed to them. But yes, I know that they are collaborating with other tribunals, past, and present, and using that as a basis and a precedent as well. So the contact for the tribunal is there on the screen, and they will be happy to give you all of the specifics.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
And just I pronounce my name, Nikichi Taifa. If I were in Nigeria, it would be Nkechi, but our tongues have been colonized, and I said I'm a new African, and so I pronounce it Nikichi Taifa. That's it.
Thank you, Sister Nikichi, and thank you for your work, and God bless you. And we are so blessed to have you here. Oh, there's another question that just came in. Can you elaborate on talks regarding reparations and political prisoners with the Biden administration? So that's something that she wanted to ask. I know from our end, as a Muslim human rights organization that I work with, our demands included release of political prisoners like Imam Jamil Amin. So I know from Justice for All, that was one of our demands from the Biden administration. And we've been working on anti-genocide for years. So that, but she would like to know specifically on talks regarding reparations and political prisoners with this new administration.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As part of the Justice Roundtable's transition document to the new administration, the 117th Congress, we specifically listed the issue of a category of release under clemency being freedom for COINTELPRO era political prisoners. In direct conversations with the Biden administration, I've taken at this point in stage until we build up enough cover, shall I say, a backdoor approach, i.e., as I mentioned before, clemency for categories of prisoners, including older prisoners, those who were in prison prior to the parole being eliminated, but still have not gotten parole, those who are vulnerable to COVID-19. And all of the COINTELPRO era prisoners fit within that rubric. So we've been taking that approach at this particular time. When there's been enough groundswell of grassroots activity around that, perhaps we can and should go just a little bit bolder. But right now, the number of people's cases are still in court. People have different strategies for their different cases, and we want to respect and honor those various strategies as well. So speaking broadly, again, of the elderly, we're talking about people who are, in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I'm just saying they fit within that category. We talk about release by any means necessary. If they can come out under elderly category, yeah. So that is the tactic that we use, strategy that we use it at this point with the administration. And it's very valid and legitimate, and it very well could be a winning strategy as well.
There's also Sister Nkichi. There's Nikichi. There was a committee.
Oh, Sister Nkichi, don't forget our brother Brian Sales. I love you. This is Joe, your sister Zakia.
My sister, thank you so much. Harlow Brian Sales. And in fact, I found out old letters from Brian from way back in the day, around the time when he first went into prison. He's being held in at Jessup in Maryland. I'm currently trying to help with some support to try to get him out. Najee was talking about conviction integrity unit, and Imam Jamil Amin had something pending before that. Well, Maryland has similar units. In fact, these units are kind of popping up around the country, and we're using that strategy as well. So thank you so much, Brian, Harlow Brian Sales, our dear brother in Maryland. Thank you.
So, and also, could you speak? I know, and Brother Najee spoke about it just a little bit, but there was the resolution, HRES 990. The sponsor is Betty Joyce Joyce Betty, from Ohio, who sponsored this resolution, and to bring it up again, asking this resolution recognizes racism as a national public health crisis and supports the creation of a truth and reconciliation process to address historic, enduring systems and structural racism against Black people.
So may I say something with respect to that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So all these bills are all great, and they're important, the same as the Truth and Reconciliation bill that Congresswoman Barbara Lee has introduced, but none of them should take precedence over HR 40 or S40, which is the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals. Truth and Reconciliation is subsumed within reparations. In fact, you can't have reconciliation until you first have repair. Okay, you have your truth and you have your repair, and then you have your reconciliation. Okay. You're not going to have the healing without that. So that's very important to note, that all eyes really need to be on HR 40 and S40 at this particular point, and all of the other bills and resolutions fall within that rubric. We got to remember, no reconciliation until there's been a acknowledgement, apology, repair, and then we can talk about reconciliation. We can't jump the gun, or else it's not a real reconciliation.
And so this is the Committee to Explore Reparations, HR 40.
Yeah, the Committee to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans.
So I'm sharing an action alert for there. That's something that we, Justice for All, had released in early during Martin Luther King Day, urging Congress to support this committee. So if folks who are watching could just, if they go on there, it takes 1 minute to send that email. Send an email to your Congress people right now that this bill can go and support this bill. This will set up and fund a committee to explore reparations for slavery. So
not just for slavery, but for release of our political prisoners as well. That should be part of the reparations remedy. So it's for the enslavement era and continuing vestiges that are lasting down to this day. I just want to make sure that that's clear. Thank you.
So that's a really great point, Sister Nkechi. Is currently the way Sheila Jackson Lee has written the bill, does that include that? From what I remember, I don't remember it seeing whether political prisoners is included in it as it's written right now.
Yeah, what the writing of the bill at this time simply sets up a commission to make the recommendations. So once the commission has established, then we need to make sure that those who are appointed to be commissioners include that as one of the proposals. And like I said, if I have anything to do with making sure that people do A, B, or C, I will show them the precedent that is there. They passed that in 1988 with the Japanese American Redress Bill. They passed a pardon for all of their political prisoners who resisted detention camp. So it's a foregone conclusion as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so that is something that definitely folks can add on. I'm sharing that on the screen right now. It's very easy to make take this action right now as she's speaking. You can add whatever you want to the email that has been set up, and it takes 1 second. Literally, just fill up your first name, last name, and send the email. So please do take that action while we're speaking. Well, thank you so much, Sister, and we hope that, we can keep supporting your work. And oops, got the wrong person on here. Yeah. And so I believe that we have gotten all, and someone just said, question. Someone just said, John people don't want to let you go. John Conyers introduced HR 40 many years ago, and it's still not even being looked at. This is another question. Reparations by way of dual citizenship still an option to have our PP/POWs released to a friendly country?
Okay, well, let me speak first to the John Conyers question. Yes, the bill was first introduced in 1989, but within the last year and a half, there's been more activity on the bill than there's been in the past 30 years. There are more co-sponsors than ever. A Senate bill companion bill has been introduced, and it's probably slated for a markup in House and vote on the House floor, within the next couple of months. And we are really working on a strategy to get the bill signed by executive order. Okay, so the next question was, there was a question about repatriation to third world country. Well, sure, that's always on the table. Okay, there needs to be some. I'm not sure if there's advocacy around that right now. That perhaps there is. I surely don't have all of the information about everything at all. I just know about the effort that went on during the 70s and 80s with respect to that. So yes, that should be something that should be looked at. As far as I'm concerned, part of a reparations settlement also includes repatriation, not just for our political prisoners, but for anybody who feels they want to repatriate. It includes those who want to set up an independent Black nation here on this soil. It includes those who want to make U.S. citizenship and a real multiracial democracy a reality. It should include all of those things that we never had the self-determining opportunity to decide for ourselves as a people after the enslavement era. So a reparations settlement can and should include all of those things. I don't have it up here right now, but there was I'm just going to close by this. There was a small book that was written in 1987 by Brother Mario Bideli, Brother Chokwe Lumumba, and myself, called Reparations. Yes, this was 1987. And it goes through all of those options, what we call, Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist options for a reparations settlement.